My mom didn't ask me to watch 5 kids over Christmas. She announced it. Like my time, my plans, and my sanity were just things she could schedule without even checking first. It happened during a family video call in early December. Everyone was smiling that fake holiday smile, the kind people use when they know something uncomfortable is about to happen. Then my mom cleared her throat and said, casually Frige, so Sydney will stay home and watch the kids over Christmas. 5 kids. My sister's 3 under 7, and my cousin's twin toddlers who treated silence like their worst enemy. At first I laughed, because I thought it was a joke. But my mom smiled and said something that made the room go quiet. It will be good for you. You don't have kids, and everyone else deserves a break. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. A plan they had already made without asking me, assuming I would say yes like I always did. Christmas Eve babysitting. Christmas Day babysitting. While everyone else relaxed, ate dinner, and called it family time. But 3 days before Christmas, when my mom sent a group message saying the kids would be dropped off at my house, I did something they never expected. Instead of arguing, instead of explaining, I booked the first flight out of town on Christmas Eve. And when my family realized I wasn't home, they started calling. But the real shock didn't happen until a few hours later, when my aunt pulled out a letter from my grandmother and read it out loud on a family video call. Halfway through that letter, everyone gasped. My sister whispered, "This can't be happening." And my mom just stared at the screen, completely speechless. Because the letter didn't just expose the way they treated me, it changed who controlled the entire family trust. And suddenly, the same people who tried to force me into babysitting 5 kids over Christmas realized they might have just lost everything. My mom didn't ask me. She didn't text first. She didn't call privately. She didn't even do that fake polite thing, where she pretends it's a question but it's really a demand. No. Left as she announced it in front of everyone like she was reading a grocery list. Like my time was already hers. And if you've ever been the reliable one in a family like mine, you know exactly what that feels like. You're not a person to them. You're a solution. My name is Sydney. I'm 34 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one they count on, without ever counting me in Riev. It started in early December, one of those forced family group video calls. You know the kind. Everybody smiles too hard. Everybody laughs too politely. Everybody pretends they're excited for the holidays, while deep down, they're already bracing for the stress, the drama, the unspoken competition over who's doing the most. I joined the call late. I was still in my pajamas, hair in a messy bun, no makeup. Just me, my coffee, and the belief that this was going to be quick. Maybe some talk about food. Maybe someone arguing about what day we'd open gifts. Maybe my mom doing her usual "Christmas is about togetherness" speech, while also controlling every little detail. I poured my coffee and sat down on the edge of my couch. The screen filled with familiar faces. But the screen filled with familiar faces. My mom, sitting upright with perfect posture, like she was hosting a news segment. My sister, already looking tired but still smiling like she had something to prove. My aunt holding her phone too close to her face. My cousin in the background trying to wrangle one of the twins. And there it was, and chaos, even through a screen. Kids yelling, running, grabbing things they shouldn't. Kids yelling, running, grabbing things they shouldn't. Someone crying. Someone asking for snacks. And my mom acted like none of it mattered. Like it was adorable. Like it was normal. Like it was normal. She waited until everyone quieted down just enough. Then she cleared her throat. That sound. That little ahem. She does when she wants attention. And I should have known. Because in my family, whenever my mom clears her throat, it means she's about to declare something, and we're all supposed to accept it. She smiled at the camera. Not a warm smile. Not a "I'm happy to see you" smile. It was that tight smile she uses when she thinks she's being generous, but really she's being controlling. Then she said it. So casual, so confident, so certain. "So Sydney will stay home and watch the kids over Christmas." I blinked. And for a second, I actually thought I misheard. I even laughed. A short, sharp laugh, because it sounded ridiculous. Like it was a joke. Like it was a joke. Like we were doing a funny little family skit where my mom plays the dictator of the holidays and everyone else plays the exhausted citizens. 5 kids. 5. Not one. Not two. 5. My sister's 3, all under 7. And my cousin's twins, toddlers. The type of toddlers who hear the word no and treat it like a challenge. They didn't nap. They didn't sit still. They didn't stop moving unless they were asleep, and even then, they sometimes woke up angry about it. So I laughed. Because how else do you respond when someone tries to volunteer you for chaos? Then I said, still smiling like maybe I was in on the joke, sorry. What? And my mom didn't miss a beat. She didn't hesitate. She didn't blink. She just nodded like I'd asked a silly question. It'll be good for you, she said. Then she leaned closer to the camera, like she was about to offer wisdom. You don't have kids of your own, and everyone else deserves a break. Everyone else deserves a break. And there it was. Deserves a break. And there it was. The sentence that told me everything. My time didn't matter. My plans didn't matter. My peace didn't matter. Because in my family, the people with kids are always the main characters. And people like me are background characters. Extras. Helpers. My sister smiled, that fake grateful smile. My cousin nodded like it was obvious. My aunt laughed and said something like, "Oh, Sydney, you're a natural, you'll be great." And I felt my stomach drop, not dramatically, not like a movie scene. It was subtle. A quiet, sinking feeling like my body knew what was happening before my brain fully accepted it, because this wasn't a suggestion. This wasn't, "Could you help a little?" This wasn't, "Would you mind watching them for an hour while we set up dinner?" No, this was Christmas Eve babysitting, Christmas Day babysitting, morning to night, late nights and early mornings, feeding kids, changing diapers, breaking up fights, wiping sticky hands off my furniture. And while I did all that, everyone else would eat, drink, laugh, take photos, sit comfortably, and call it family time. I could already see it. My mom handing me a diaper bag like she was doing me a favor bag. My sister slipping away to rest while I handled tantrums. My cousin saying, "Oh, they're just excited," as her twins screamed like sirens. And me smiling through it because I didn't want to be difficult. Because in my family, if you say no, you're not just saying no. You're committing a crime. You're selfish, unhelpful, unloving. So I did what I always did. I tried to be calm. I tried to be reasonable. I tried to speak like an adult in a room full of people who treated me like a service. I took a breath. Then I said, "I already booked time off work. I have my own plans." Simple. Clear. Well, polite. But my mom waved it away with one hand like she was swatting a fly. "You can relax later," she said. What then she gave her final line, the line she always uses to end arguments, the line she uses like a weapon. Family comes first. And that hit me like a slap. Because family comes first never meant what it sounded like. It didn't mean love. It didn't mean support. It didn't mean support. It didn't mean respect. In my family, family comes first meant Bay D. Sydney comes last. Because if family came first, they would have asked. They would have cared what I wanted. They would have thought, even for 1 second, that I might have plans, feelings, boundaries, a life. But no, they just decided. And they looked at me like my only job was to accept it. I stared at my screen, at their faces, at the way nobody looked surprised. Nobody said, "Wait, did you ask her?" Nobody said, "Is Sydney okay with this?" Nobody even paused. They all spoke as if it was already settled law, like my mom had just announced the date of Christmas itself. And in that moment, something in me snapped. Not loudly, not with a shout, not with tears. It was quieter than that. It was colder. It was the realization that this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a plan they made without me, a plan they made because they assumed I would fold, like I always had. Because the truth is, I had a history, a long one. At 26, I canceled a New Year's trip because the kids needed me. At 30, I spent a holiday cleaning up after everyone while they toasted champagne and took pictures. I had been trained, not by force, by guilt, by expectation, by the unspoken rule that my life was flexible, because I didn't have kids. as if my time was less valuable because I hadn't followed the same path, as if my peace was optional, as if I existed to make everyone else's life easier. After the call ended, the messages started. Of course they did. My sister texted me that same day. "You're such a lifesaver," a smiley face, like she was thanking me for a gift I never agreed to give. My aunt sent a voice note laughing. "Oh, honey, you'll be tired, but you'll feel so fulfilled." Fulfilled. Like cleaning up someone else's chaos would somehow fix a hole in my life. Like I needed to be humbled by diaper duty. Like watching 5 kids with some kind of character building experience. And the worst part? No one asked if I agreed. Not once. They all moved like it was already decided. The week dragged on, and I started sleeping badly. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with my chest tight, heart racing, like my body was preparing for battle before my mind even caught up. I kept replaying the coming holiday like a bad dream. Kids yelling in my living room, my mom dropping them off with a cheerful bye, my sister acting like she deserved wine and relaxation because parenting was hard, and me stuck there, smiling through it, swallowing my anger like I always had. Then, 3 days before Christmas, my phone buzzed, a family group message, and the second I saw my mom's name, my stomach turned. I opened it. One line, no question mark, no softness, no room for discussion. "Kids will be dropped off at Sydney's place Christmas Eve morning. Thanks again." That was it. Like she was confirming the delivery. Like I was a daycare center. I stared at my phone for a long time. My hands started shaking. Not from fear, from anger, sharp, clean anger that finally cut through years of guilt. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. And in that moment, I realized something that scared me and freed me at the same time. If I didn't stop this now, I never would. Because if I said yes this year, it would be the same next year, and the year after, and every holiday after that, until I became the family's permanent unpaid worker. So that night, I did something I had never done before. I didn't argue. I didn't negotiate. I didn't plead. I didn't plead. I didn't send a long paragraph explaining my feelings to people who never cared about them. I opened my laptop, went to a flight website, and searched for the first plane out of town on Christmas Eve. One way. Early morning. Window seat. My finger hovered over the button for half a second, not because I didn't want it to, because I could already hear their voices in my head. "You're selfish. You're dramatic. You're ruining Christmas. You think you're too good for family now?" But then another voice, quieter, spoke up. A voice I'd ignored for years. "Leave." So I clicked book, and when that confirmation email landed in my inbox, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Not the kind that fades quickly, the kind that sits deep in your bones and tells you, you just saved yourself. And I thought that was the end of it. A quiet escape, a peaceful Christmas away from being taken for granted. But I had no idea that while I was planning my exit, my family was about to walk into something much bigger. Because a few hours after I took off, a video call would come through. And on that call, my aunt would hold up a piece of paper, a letter, a letter my grandmother wrote. And halfway through reading it, every single person would gasp like the world shifted under their feet. Because the letter wasn't just a message, it was a decision. And when my mom realized what was written there, she didn't just lose her holiday plans, she lost her control. And the craziest part, I didn't even know it was coming. Not yet. But I was about to find out in the most unexpected way. And when I did, I understood why my grandmother stayed quiet for so long. Because she wasn't ignoring what they were doing to me. She was watching. And she was waiting. And, for the right moment, to make them pay for it. The moment I booked that flight, my whole body changed. It's hard to explain if you've never lived your life as the easy one, the one who doesn't complain, the one who always adjusts, the one who gets told you're so independent like it's a compliment, when really it's an excuse to use you. But when I clicked that button and saw confirmed on the screen, it felt like I had finally stepped out of a role I never auditioned for. I sat there for a few minutes with my laptop still open. The room was quiet. My coffee was cold. And for the first time in days, my chest didn't feel tight. I didn't feel guilty yet. That part came later. Right then, I felt free. Not fully. Not safely. Not safely. But enough to breathe bread. I checked the flight details again and again, like I was afraid the universe would take it back. Christmas Eve, early morning, window seat, one way, no return date. And that was important, because if I booked a round trip, it would feel like I was still asking for permission, like I was still planning to come back and fix whatever mess they created without me. A one-way ticket felt different. A one-way ticket said, I'm not available, not just for babysitting. For the old version of me, I didn't tell anyone, not my sister, not my aunt, not even my closest friend, because I knew how it would go. If I said it out loud, they'd argue, they'd guilt me, they'd poke holes in my plan until I doubted myself. And worst of all, a small part of me would start explaining, defending, apologizing, like I always did. And I didn't want to give them that chance. So I did what I always did when I was overwhelmed. I cleaned. I folded laundry I didn't need to fold. I wiped down counters that were already clean. I acted normal because normal was safer than feeling. But inside, I was counting down the hours. Every text felt like a trap. Every notification made my heart jump. And sure enough, the texts kept coming. My sister sent, I'm making little snack bags for the kids. They're so excited to be with you. With you. Not watching them. Not helping out. Not babysitting. She framed it like it was a fun auntie sleepover. Like I was lucky. Like I should be grateful for the honor of spending my holiday chasing toddlers around my living room. I didn't answer. Then my aunt. Then my aunt. Sydney, don't forget Christmas Eve morning. We'll drop them off early so you can settle them in. Love you. Early, so I could settle them in. Like I was running a holiday daycare. I stared at the message until my eyes blurred. And that old reflex rose in me, that familiar fear. Fear of being the bad one. Fear of being the difficult one. Fear of being blamed for ruining the mood. In my family, moods mattered more than people. If the mood was happy, everything was fine, even if someone was being crushed under the weight of everyone else. So I turned my phone over on the couch and walked away. I packed quietly. Not like a vacation, like an escape. A few outfits, nothing fancy. A book I never had time to read. Chargers. Headphones. I packed my suitcase like I was doing something wrong, like I was sneaking out as a teenager. And that's when I realized how deep it went. I'm 34 years old, and I still felt like I needed permission to live my life. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept playing imaginary scenes like a bad TV show. My mom showing up at my door with 5 kids in bags and coats and that triumphant look on her face. My sister walking in like she owned my home. My cousin laughing while her twins ran wild. And me standing there trapped, smiling through it because that's what I was trained to do. But then my brain would jump to the other scene. The one I chose. Me at the airport. Me on a plane. Me in a hotel room with quiet walls. No crying. No screaming. No sticky hands pulling on me. Just silence, peace. My own life. And every time my mind tried to drag me back to guilt, I held on to that image like a rope. Christmas Eve came fast. Too fast. It was still dark outside when my alarm went off. And I'll never forget the first thought I had when I opened my eyes. Not Merry Christmas. Not I'm excited. Not even what am I doing. It was, they think I'm going to be there. That thought gave me a rush of energy so sharp it almost felt like fear. Like I was committing a crime. And in my family, saying no was a crime. I moved quietly through my apartment, lights low, shoes on, suitcase by the door. For a second, I stood there with my hand on the knob, just listening. It was so silent. No kids, no voices, just the hum of my refrigerator. And I wondered, for half a second, if I was overreacting, if I should just stay, if I should just do it and get it over with. That guilt voice tried one last time. It's only 2 days. Just help. Don't cause drama. Then I imagined 5 kids in my home. Imagined them crying. Imagined me exhausted and angry. Imagined my mom eating pie somewhere. laughing like she hadn't just handed me a burden, and something in me hardened, not into hate, into clarity. I stepped outside and locked the door behind me, and it hit me. They weren't asking for help, they were taking. They were claiming my life like it was theirs. And I was done. At the airport, everything felt surreal. People were smiling. Homilies were carrying wrapped gifts. Kids were bouncing with excitement. And there I was, standing in a long line with a suitcase and a boarding pass that felt like a secret. I kept checking my phone, but I didn't open any messages. I didn't want to see the countdown texts. I didn't want to see their confidence, because their confidence was built on one assumption that I would fold, one's assumption that I would fold. At security, I almost laughed because the TSA agent looked at my ID and said, "Have a good holiday." And I wanted to say, "I'm about to holiday." And I found my gate and sat down, heart pounding. Not with regret. I felt like I was running from something even though I wasn't being chased. Yet, I gripped my boarding pass so tightly my fingers hurt. And then, right as they started boarding, my phone buzzed. A call. Mom. My stomach flipped. This was it. This was the moment where old me would answer. Already apologizing. Already explaining. My thumb hovered over the screen. And then I did something that felt almost unreal. I didn't pick up. I didn't decline. I didn't text. I just watched it stop. And when the call ended, I felt a wave of something hot and strange. Power. Not loud power. Quiet power, the kind that scares people who are used to controlling you. Boarding started. I stood up, rolled my suitcase forward, and joined the line. Mom called again, then my sister. Then my aunt. Buzz, buzz, buzz. My phone felt like it was trying to drag me backward. I turned it face down, and I stepped onto the plane. I remember the smell, recycled air, and coffee. I remember the sound of overhead bins slamming shut, and I remember sitting in my window seat, fastening my seatbelt and thinking, they have no idea. When the plane began to move, my heart started racing. It wasn't fear. It was excitement so sharp it made me dizzy, like I had finally broken a rule that was never fair in the first place. And then we took off. That moment where the wheels leave the ground. It felt like my entire life lifted with it. I didn't check my phone. I stared out the window as the city shrank below. And something in me loosened, like a tight knot that had been there for years finally started to untie. A couple hours later, I landed. Different city, different air, different energy. I got to a small hotel, nothing fancy, just clean, quiet, and mine. I checked in, took the key card, and stepped into the room. The door clicked shut behind me, and that sound, that simple sound, was the sound of a boundary. I dropped my suitcase and stood there, staring at the room like it was a miracle. No toys on the floor, no screaming, no sticky fingerprints, no people expecting me to serve them. Just silence. And for the first time in years, I laughed out loud. Not a polite laugh, not a nervous laugh. A real laugh, because it felt almost ridiculous that I had to fly hundreds of miles away just to be left alone. I ordered room service. Dessert first, because I could sigh. Then I sat on the bed with my shoes off, TV on low, and for a few minutes, I felt peaceful. I thought, that's it. I thought I had escaped the storm. But storms don't always chase you with thunder. Sometimes they follow you quietly through a screen. That evening, I was halfway through dessert when my phone buzzed again. A video call. Family group call. Someone added me without asking. Of course they did. Because boundaries in my family were treated like suggestions, I stared at the screen. My finger hovered. I should have ignored it. I should have let it rhyme. No, I should have let it rhyme. Gey tell. But there was a part of me, the old part, that still reacted automatically, the part that had been trained to show up. So before I could stop myself, I answered. And instantly my screen filled with faces. My mom, my cousin, my aunt, and behind them, movement, noise. The kids were already restless, bouncing around in the background like fireworks. And my mom's face was the kind of angry that makes the room colder. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't even pretend. She leaned forward and snapped, "Where are you?" I swallowed. My throat was suddenly dry. I said, calm but firm, I'm not home. I told you I had plans. My mom's eyes narrowed, like she didn't recognize that version of me. Like she was seeing a stranger wearing my face. My sister started talking fast. Sydney, stop playing games. The kids are ready, and then my aunt interrupted. Her voice sounded shaky, not angry, not demanding, almost nervous. She held her phone too close, like always, and said, Bako, since we're all here, I might as well read this out loud. She lifted a piece of paper, and my stomach dropped so fast it felt like the air left my lungs. I recognized it instantly. A letter. A letter my grandmother had sent weeks ago. A letter she asked my aunt to read to everyone on Christmas, if she wasn't there. My aunt looked down at the page, then back up at the screen. The room went quieter. Even the kids, sensing something, slowed down. My mom's expression changed from furious to confused. My sister's smile faded like someone turned off a light, and my aunt began to read. At first, it sounded normal, like a heartfelt holiday message. But then, her tone shifted. Her voice tightened. She swallowed. And halfway through, my sister's mouth fell open. My mom's face went pale. Someone off screen and gasped. Another whispered, What? And my aunt kept reading, her eyes darting between the paper and the camera like she couldn't believe the words she was saying. By the time she reached the middle of the letter, the whole screen looked different. No one was smiling. No one was moving. It was like the room had been frozen, and all I could think was, what is in that letter that could make them look like that dive? Because whatever it wasn't just news, it was a truth, and it was landing like a bomb. My cousin swore under her breath. One of the kids started crying, confused by the tension. My mom's lips parted like she wanted to speak, but no sound came out. And then I heard my sister whisper, barely audible, This can't be happening. My mom finally said it too, like she was trying to wake herself up. What? This can't be happening. And I sat there on a hotel bed, hundreds of miles away, realizing something terrifying and strange. Boarding that plane wasn't just an escape, it was the first move in something much bigger. And none of them saw it coming. Not even me. For a few seconds after my aunt stopped reading, no one spoke. It was the strangest silence I had ever experienced. Not the quiet kind, not peaceful. This was the kind of silence that happens when people realize something they believed their whole lives was never true. The video call froze for a moment, not because of the internet, because every single person on that screen was trying to understand what they had just heard. My mom's face had changed. The anger she had before, the anger about the kids, about me leaving, was gone. Now she looked scared. Her lips were pressed together so tightly they almost disappeared. My sister was staring at the camera like someone had just told her the sky wasn't real. My cousin leaned closer to the phone, and my aunt was still holding that letter like it might explode. Then my mom spoke. Fast. Too fast. The kind of fast people speak when they're trying to fix something before anyone else processes it. That letter is outdated, she said. Her voice was tight, controlled, almost rehearsed. Mom was emotional when she wrote it. You know how she gets. For a moment, nobody responded, but my aunt didn't look convinced. She looked down at the paper again, adjusted her glasses, then calmly said something that made my mom go completely still. It's dated last month. She paused, then added, and it's notarized. The words dropped into the room like heavy stones. Notarized. That meant it wasn't just a letter. It was legal, real, final. My mom blinked several times, like her brain refused to accept what she was hearing. My cousin leaned forward suddenly. Wait, what exactly did it say? My aunt hesitated. Then she began reading again. This time slower, more carefully, like the weight of the words was pressing down on her. And as she read, the entire room changed, because this wasn't just a holiday message. It wasn't a sweet grandmother note about love and family. It was something else. Something honest. Painfully honest. My grandmother had written about watching our family for years, watching how everyone treated each other, watching how certain people were always expected to give, while others were always allowed to take, And then she wrote about me, about Sydney, about the person everyone assumed would handle it. My aunt read the words out loud. I have watched for many years how Sydney has been treated in this family. My stomach tightened. I didn't know my grandmother felt that way. I didn't even know she noticed. But apparently, she had noticed everything. My aunt continued. Sydney is always described as independent, strong, capable. My sister shifted uncomfortably. My mom crossed her arms. My aunt kept reading. But I have noticed that those words are often used when it is convenient for others. The room stayed silent, and I could feel something strange happening inside me. Not anger, not even vindication. It felt like someone had finally said something out loud that I had been carrying for years. My aunt's voice softened slightly. When a family member is called independent, it should mean we admire them. She paused, then read the next line. Not that we believe they need less care. No one moved. No one interrupted. Even the kids had gone quiet somewhere off screen. Then came the part that made everyone look at each other. My aunt cleared her throat. Over the past several years, I have quietly provided financial support to Sydney. My cousin frowned. My sister's eyes widened. My mom leaned forward. What? But my aunt kept reading. I did this because I believed she deserved stability that was not tied to family expectations. I felt my chest tighten because I didn't know that. Yes, my grandmother had helped me before. A birthday gift here. A surprise check when I moved apartments. But I thought those were just small things. Apparently, they weren't. My aunt continued. Some of this money has been invested in Sydney's name. Now my cousin was staring directly at the screen. My sister whispered, Wait, what? And my mom's face was turning a shade of red I had never seen before. My aunt swallowed and read the next line. These investments have been legally protected, so they cannot be influenced or redirected by other family members. That sentence landed like thunder, because everyone on that call understood exactly what it meant. My grandmother didn't just help me, she protected me. From them. My sister shook her head slowly. That's not fair. My cousin spoke louder. Why weren't we told about this? But my aunt wasn't finished. She looked down at the letter again. And I could tell something bigger was coming. Her hands were shaking slightly. When she spoke again, her voice sounded almost nervous. There's more. The room felt colder. My mom leaned forward, her voice sharp. Just read it. My aunt nodded. Then she read the sentence that changed everything. Effective immediately, I have transferred control of the family trust into Sydney's name. For a second, no one reacted, like the words hadn't reached their brains yet. Then my cousin's mouth fell open, my sister stared straight into the camera, and my mom looked like the ground had disappeared under her feet. My aunt continued quietly. This trust includes several family assets and properties that will be distributed after my passing. My cousin spoke first, her voice loud and shocked. You're kidding. My sister whispered again. My sister whispered again. My sister whispered again. That's not possible. My mom finally snapped. Sydney manipulated her. The accusation hit the screen like a slap, and for years that accusation would have destroyed me. It would have made my stomach drop, made me panic, made me rush to explain myself. But something was different now. Maybe it was the plane ride. Maybe it was the distance. Maybe it was the way my grandmother had just defended me in a letter written without my knowledge. But for the first time in my life, that accusation didn't scare me. I took a slow breath. Then I said calmly, I didn't even know about the letter until right now. Silence again. Because they could see it on my face. I wasn't lying. My aunt nodded slowly. She's telling the truth, she said. Then she adjusted her glasses and added something that made the tension spike even higher. And there's still another part. My cousin groaned. What now? My aunt looked at the paper again, then read the section my grandmother had clearly written, very carefully. This trust includes several conditions. Now everyone was paying attention, even the people who had been arguing seconds ago. My aunt continued. If any family member attempts to pressure, threaten, or publicly shame Sydney in order to influence her decisions, she paused, looked up at the camera. Then finish the sentence. They will automatically forfeit access to any future financial support connected to the shared properties. The reaction was immediate. My cousin swore. My sister leaned back in her chair, and my mom's face turned a deep, furious red because everyone on that call understood something instantly. The very thing they were doing, right now, was exactly what my grandmother warned about. The same people who thought they could bully me into babysitting 5 kids over Christmas had just disqualified themselves without even realizing it. My mom slammed her hand on the table. So what? She snapped. Her voice was shaking with anger. You think you're better than us now? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. I didn't argue. I simply said the truth. No. Then I added, I think I'm done being treated like free labor. That was the moment my sister exploded. Her face twisted with frustration. You ruined Christmas, she shouted. One of the kids started crying again in the background, but she didn't stop. You abandoned family. Then came the sentence she thought would hurt me the most. You were selfish. The old me would have rushed to defend myself, to explain, to apologize, but I didn't. I just let the words sit there, empty. Because when someone accuses you of something that isn't true, sometimes silence says more than any argument. Finally, my aunt spoke again, her voice quiet, but firm. This didn't start today. She looked directly at the screen, then said the sentence that ended the conversation. It just ended today. My mom stared at her for a long moment. Then suddenly the screen went black. She had ended the call. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. And I sat there in my quiet hotel room, staring at my phone, waiting for the familiar wave of guilt to crash over me. Because that's what usually happened. Whenever there was conflict, whenever someone accused me, whenever family tension appeared. But this time it didn't come. Instead, there was something else. Relief. Deep, steady, undeniable. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to fix everyone else's feelings. I ordered another dessert, turned on the TV, and spent Christmas Eve exactly how I wanted, in peace. But what I didn't realize yet was that the real fallout hadn't started. Because over the next few days, the messages would start arriving. Angry ones, Pole, Ida ones, manipulative ones. And one message in particular would prove that my family still hadn't learned anything at all. After my mom ended the call, the silence in my hotel room felt different. Not heavy, not uncomfortable, just calm. For a long moment, I sat there staring at the dark screen of my phone, half expecting it to light up again, half expecting someone to call back and continue the argument. But nothing happened. Outside the window, cars passed slowly through the city streets, their headlights sliding across the walls like soft moving shadows. I leaned back against the headboard and let out a long breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Because something had shifted, not just in my family. Inside me. For years, I believed conflict meant I had done something wrong. That if someone was upset, it must somehow be my fault. But that night, I finally saw something clearly. Their anger wasn't about me being unfair. It was about me not being available anymore. And those are two very different things. I set my phone down and picked up the dessert I had ordered earlier. Chocolate cake, something simple, something small. But it felt strangely symbolic. Because for once, I was doing something just because I wanted to. Not because someone needed me. Not because someone expected it. Just because I could. I turned on the TV and let some random holiday movie play in the background. I didn't even pay attention to the story. I just enjoyed the quiet. No kids running around. No one calling my name from the other room. No one handing me responsibility I never agreed to carry. Just silence and peace. The next morning was Christmas. I woke up naturally. No alarm. No crying toddlers. No frantic knocking on my door. Sunlight came through the curtains slowly, warm and soft. And for a few seconds, I just lay there, listening. It was still quiet. That quiet felt like a gift. Eventually, I reached for my phone. Part of me expected chaos. Hundreds of messages. Endless accusations. Endless accusations. Family drama exploding in my notifications. But instead, there were only a handful of messages. The first one was from my cousin. It was short. Wow, didn't know Grandma did that. No apology, no reflection, just shock. The second message was from my sister, and I could already tell by the length of it that it wasn't going to be pleasant. I opened it slowly. It read, I hope you're happy. You completely ruined Christmas. The kids were crying because they were excited to see you. Mom is devastated. I don't understand why you had to make such a big deal out of helping family. I stared at the message for a long moment, because even after everything, even after the letter, even after hearing our grandmother explain why she made those decisions, my sister still didn't see it. My sister still didn't see it. She still believed the problem wasn't the pressure they put on me. The problem, in her mind, was that I refused. And that's when I realized something important. Some people don't change when they hear the truth. They only change when the truth affects them. And right now, the truth was affecting them a lot. I didn't answer her message, not because I was angry, because I finally understood something that therapy would later confirm. Not every accusation deserves a response. Not every conflict needs to be solved. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is simply not participate. Later that afternoon, another message arrived. This one from my aunt. It was shorter, but it felt different. She wrote, I'm proud of you. That was it. No long explanation. No dramatic speech. Just those 4 words. I smiled. Because out of everyone in the family, my aunt had always been the quiet observer. She didn't interfere much, but she noticed things. And apparently, so did my grandmother. The rest of Christmas Day passed peacefully. I walked around the city for a while, bought coffee from a small shop, watched strangers carrying shopping bags and laughing with their families. And instead of feeling lonely, I felt something unexpected. Clarity. For years, I thought family meant obligation, that it meant enduring things just to keep the peace. But standing there in that unfamiliar city, surrounded by strangers, I realized something. Peace is not something you earn by sacrificing yourself. Peace is something you protect by setting boundaries. The real fallout started a few days later. The messages began to trickle in more frequently. Some were angry, some were passive-aggressive, some suddenly became very polite. My cousin sent one that said, May, just wanted to clear the air. I think we all got a little emotional. Maybe we can talk about how the trust works. I almost laughed, because suddenly everyone wanted to talk about the trust, not about how they treated me, not about the years of expectation, just about the money, just about the assets. My mom didn't message me at all. Weeks passed without a word, and honestly, that silence was one of the most peaceful things I had experienced in years. Eventually, my sister tried again. This time, the message was different. Friendlier. Wally. Careful. Hey, I was thinking maybe we could meet for lunch sometime. Also, if you're doing well financially now, maybe you could help out a little with the kids. Daycare has been really expensive. I stared at the message. Then I said something I had never said before in my life. Something simple. Something clear. Something final. No. Just that one word. No explanation. No apology. No extra sentences to soften the blow. And strangely enough, it was the easiest no I had ever said. Because once you start respecting your own boundaries, saying no stops feeling like cruelty. It starts feeling like honesty. Months passed. Life became quieter. Not perfect, not magically easier, but different. I started therapy. At first, it felt strange talking about things I had always brushed off as normal. But the more I talked, the more I realized how much I had accepted for years. The guilt, the pressure, the expectation that my life existed mainly to support everyone else's. Therapy helped me understand something powerful. Boundaries don't change people, they reveal them. Some people respect them, some people fight them, some people disappear. And every one of those reactions tells you exactly who they are. I also started traveling more, nothing extravagant, just small trips. Weekend visits to places I had always wanted to see, but never prioritized. Because for the first time, my time belonged to me. And the strangest part, the more distance I created, the clearer my relationships became. My aunt stayed in contact. She visited me a few months later, We sat in a small cafe, drinking tea. At one point, she looked at me and said quietly, "I was nervous reading that letter." I nodded. I could tell. She smiled slightly. "Your grandmother asked me to do it because she knew your mom wouldn't listen to anyone else." That made sense. Then she added something I'll never forget. They needed to hear it. She paused, then looked at me seriously. "And you needed to leave." I sat there for a moment, thinking about that, about the plane ticket, about the call, about the moment my grandmother's words changed everything. And she was right. Leaving wasn't just about avoiding babysitting 5 kids. Leaving was the first time I chose myself instead of choosing comfort for everyone else. So, yes. And while my family was busy assuming I would sacrifice again, I finally stepped out of the role they had written for me. Now, when I think back to that moment, my mom assuming I would fold, my sister already thanking me, my phone buzzing as the plane lifted into the sky, and that video call, the shocked faces, the gasps, the whispers of "this can't be happening." I don't feel anger. I feel gratitude. Gratitude that my grandmother saw what I couldn't yet see. Gratitude that my aunt had the courage to read those words out loud. But most of all, gratitude that I finally listened to that quiet voice inside me, the one that said, "Leave." Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't staying and fixing everything. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choosing yourself.